what criteria to determine if a claim is extraordinary? That'd be Heath in Texas.
Great.
Hey,
Hello, Heath.
how's it going? And Johnny. So yeah, you read my question correct. I basically I'm sort of building out my arsenal of street epistemology, and so I wanted to know how you can tell whether one belief is extraordinary or not, and how you can tell sort of which is there like a sort of scale or something like that. I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on it.
That's an interesting question. When I think if a claim is extraordinary, what I tend to think is, does this fit in line with what I have experienced in my years on this earth? Is it fit in the everyday? Sometimes we hear about scientific claims that seem extraordinary, and then usually it's backed up by research and data, and they can be explained in some regard. But as far as non-scientific extraordinary claims, like I don't know, a Coke bottle flies across the room, I would say that doesn't fit in with my everyday experience of the extraordinary, and then I want to know more, just as I would with a scientific claim. So that's my definition, I think. I mean, and it ever expands as science progresses. More things tend to become ordinary when we have an explanation for it. Matt, do you have a definition of an extraordinary claim?
So one of the things is that I did a video recently talking about how it's not so much that a claim is extraordinary in and of itself. It is the facts about the claim are either consistent with what we already know and understand about reality, or they are inconsistent with it. And so I don't know how this would work in a courtroom. So I'm glad Johnny's here, because he would know. But I tend to think of things, despite the fact that I'm not a lawyer, I tend to think of things in terms of a courtroom. And if you were to make a statement in a courtroom where the opposition could object and ask that you offer some substantiation for that claim, if that's likely to happen, then I would say that that is a claim that is at least somewhat extraordinary. If you just say, it's like if Johnny's in court and says the sky is blue, nobody's going to demand that you provide evidence for that, or that gravity works, or that I don't even know. And so largely it's so the famous claim is that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And the thing is, all claims require however much evidence is required to warrant acceptance of that. And the only reason we point to some claims as extraordinary is because sometimes at face value and the available evidence, we already just accept something, and other things require a little more. So when you say I have a pet dog, it's not that you're making a claim without evidence. It's you are making a claim that is consistent with all the evidence. We know that dogs exist. We know that people have dogs as pets. We know that people like to talk about, hey, I just got a new pet puppy and everything else. There's everything about your claim is consistent with everything everybody already recognizes about reality. As a matter of fact, anybody who came forward and said, what do you mean you got a dog? Prove that dogs exist. I mean, we would look at them a little askew. And departing from that is where you start to get into extraordinary claims. And all we're really saying is that you're going to need to come with additional evidence beyond what we already know about reality for us to accept it.
Yeah.
So can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
So, Johnny, you talked sort of about how it seems like the extraordinariness of a claim for you is subjective. Does that sound like a good representation of your?
I would say I have my own subjective experience, but I think that my experience of life is not really all that different from yours and Matt's in the day-to-day life. I go to the grocery store, I go to sleep, I wake up, I go to the bathroom, I eat, I see people. There's object permanence. There's trees. There's clouds. And these are all ordinary things that I see every day, nothing out of the ordinary. But when something out of the ordinary happens, I think that in order for me if there's a claim of something that's out of the ordinary, I'm going to want to have explanations that will explain it in a way that makes sense to me. Now, in my life, I've never had an experience that I haven't been able to explain through ordinary means, right? I hear a sound in the middle of the night. Well, Probably my imagination. I see a shadow on the wall and I lose track of what room I'm in. Oh, it's just I'm in a semi-dream state or something like that. But if I had a Coke bottle fly across the room and hover in front of me and start talking to me, perhaps I would start questioning whether this was an ordinary experience, and I would start seeking explanations to sort of bring it down to earth in an ordinary way. I'm having a hallucination. My mind is drifting from its ordinary mental state. But it's never happened to me. So I guess it is subjective. There are people who have had these experiences, and some accept supernatural explanations. I don't know why they do. And some are quicker to go toward, hallucination or some sort of a break in their mental health. I don't know what it might be, but go on. What with your question? Is that answer?
I was talking to my friend, and she claims that ghosts exist, and she claims that she has all these experiences that are unexplainable except by the existence of ghosts, but she couldn't see why that belief was extraordinary because she's had so many of these mystical experiences. So I was just trying to kind of figure out how I could explain to her that belief is extraordinary. Maybe I can't. I don't know.
Well, so she's explaining that she reached a conclusion. So we don't deny that she may have had these experiences that she can't explain, right? We're not calling her a liar. We're saying that, okay, you saw something, you experienced something, right? But now you've jumped to a conclusion that there's this realm outside of the ordinary you're claiming now exists.
Yeah.
Why should we believe that it exists?
When she says this isn't explainable by anything other than ghosts. Yeah. First of all, how do you know? How do you know that this is the only explanation? And B, when the only explanation that you have left is something that you have no good evidence for, it's fundamentally identical to saying, I don't have any explanation for this other than magic, other than 20,000 other potential things that I can't prove. And so what we got is someone who's like, I had an experience. I want to understand it. The only thing that someone has presented to me that makes it somewhat make sense is that there's a ghost. But that doesn't mean that there's a ghost. That just means that you haven't been presented with an explanation that is, evidence-based and supportive of your actual proposition. And so it's not like your friend has evidence for ghosts. Your friend is essentially making a fallacious argument from incredulity in some sense that she can't believe it's anything other than a ghost. And that's about her failure of imagination and just general ignorance that we all have on how to explain this experience that she had.
Yeah. Why is it a ghost? Why isn't it?
So I think I misinterpreted her position. She said that these events are only explainable by a force that science has yet to discover. And so to me, that seems like an extraordinary claim that there's some force that science has not yet discovered. But to her, it did not seem so extraordinary.
Well, it's not extraordinary that there may be something that science hasn't discovered. What's extraordinary is that in the face of science having not discovered something, she thinks she's found the right answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she has no evidence for it. And when your evidence for something is, well, I have discovered something that science hasn't discovered yet. Okay, cool. Go get your Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was really useful. Yeah.
Has she explained to you how she knows it's a ghost and not, let's say, to use something from, Truth Wanted, like a tulpa speaking to her, whispering her truths, or aliens communicating with her in the brain? Like, how does she determine that it was ghosts specifically?
Yeah, like I said, she said that I believe ghosts exist, and then later she told me I don't even know what ghosts are. So what she was really saying was she was claiming that there was some force that science hadn't discovered, basically.
Okay.
Okay. Well, when she can actually demonstrate that, then that becomes part of science. The problem is that it's clear now that she believes something while simultaneously saying there really isn't any good reason to believe this, but I'm going to believe it anyway. And I would want to know, I mean, my first question after getting that far is, why on earth does she believe something while also acknowledging that she doesn't have good reason to believe? Now, she may not say, I don't have a good reason to believe this, but you may have to have the conversation to talk about at what point should we become convinced of something. And if she thinks the point that we should become convinced is when she suspects that there's an explanation that science just hasn't discovered yet. I mean that.
And Heath, can I ask you this?
I remember now.
Heath, let me ask you this though: how the tone of these conversations that you're having with your friend, are they friendly conversations where she's like, well, yeah, I just kind of believe it's ghosts, right? Or is she impassioned about it? Are you stepping on her feet by challenging her belief in the ghosts, or is it more friendly banter?
I was intentionally trying to imitate Anthony Magnambusco. I don't really know how you say his last name, but he's been on this show a couple times. So
Anthony Magnambusco. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so using street epistemology techniques to try to elicit the level of confidence she has and the epistemological foundation for why she believes that, and she's been game for it the entire time, and she just enjoys the conversation.
Right, yeah,
and you're not hammering her every time you see her.
No,
I think I would have phrased that differently if I were you. Sorry, Johnny.
Yeah, don't hammer anybody unless they are fully consenting to hammering. But no, you're
maybe can I? So the reason that this was a problem is because we had talked through, strong evidence and how if a claim is extraordinary, it needs strong evidence, and personal testimony is not really strong evidence, and she didn't believe that her claim was extraordinary, which is why she felt that she was justified in claiming that it was true because it wasn't that extraordinary. She also didn't have very extraordinary evidence to back it up.
Here's a tack you might take. There tends to be a tendency I've noticed amongst skeptics, non-believers in the community who they want to get that gotcha moment. They want to turn somebody in the conversation. They want to get them to just say, you're right. Everything I believe is nonsense. I give it all up. Right. Maybe don't think that you're going to win this with a direct attack. Maybe just talk with her about what constitutes good evidence. Bring to her attention other examples of extraordinary claims. In different parts of the world, they have holy men who can claim that they can levitate or they can live off of prana, or people who claim that they've been abducted by aliens, people who have tulpas, or people who have different kinds of supposed supernatural powers and what have you, right? Maybe bring those to her attention and have like a light conversation about like, well, do you believe this? And then examine why she does or does not. What would she need to see if she were going to start believing in being able to live off prana, which is some kind of energy that sustains your body and spirit without having to eat food? And then maybe showing her examples of how no one's ever actually pulled that off. They always sneak food in hotel rooms with hidden cameras and what have you. Maybe attack it collaterally, a collateral attack on that in a friendly way, and being very aware, having great situational awareness that there may be a point that your friend says, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Or reading the body language, reading the words, make sure there's complete consent in the conversation, because you don't want to lose a friend. And you don't want it to become a personal attack. And that can happen. I'll say this. I have conversations with a really good friend of mine who's a Catholic. And the more ACA stuff I do, I don't really share this work with him because I don't want him to feel like I'm attacking him as a person. I think he's a great guy. He's a good friend of mine. And we just, he'll text me questions about miracles or, issues about eternal punishment for finite crimes and stuff like that. And I'm always ready to stop the conversation and switch to video games if I need to. Because I know that over the long haul, if we keep on having these conversations and I keep coming back to a reasonable position and talking about the ordinary things in life, to talk about, you want to buy a car, what kind of evidence would you need to trust that this is a good purchase? Okay, very good. How about buying a home? Okay, how about going outside during certain weather phenomenon? What would you need to know to see if it were a safe thing to do? And then now let's talk about, the the mysteries discussed in the Bible? Do you see how there's a qualitative difference between the kind of evidence you accept to determine whether you want to go out during a hailstorm versus whether or not you believe that something happened thousands of years ago? So
there's something here, and I'm hoping this makes it clear, because we've kind of danced around this a bit.
Yeah.
And that is the notion that it's not at all extraordinary to run across people who believe in ghosts. It's not at all extraordinary to run across people who believe in a God. It's not extraordinary to think, someone believes they encountered a ghost. What is extraordinary is that someone should be right about the ghost. That the claim ghosts exist and are real, and I have detected one, is the extraordinary claim. It's not at all extraordinary that someone could believe something. That is separate from whether or not the thing they believe is actually true.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, yeah, everything you guys are saying is, I just started Peter Boghossian's book, so everything y'all are saying is exactly, it's good. It's what he's saying too, so it all makes sense.
Cool.
So yeah, thanks.
Keep it friendly, Heath. Just you're exploring the world together. You're exploring the known and the unknown as best you can. And the most important thing about this is keeping a dialogue open and staying friends, and maybe help guide someone toward a more skeptical view of the world, which is I personally think is more grounded in reality.
Yeah. Okay.
Sound good, Heath?
Cool.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Great
you.
talking to you.